Hello, and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence,
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
and this week we're talking about prom night. It's prom season. How are you, Meg?
Good. I've had too much coffee, so I'm like sort of on a caffeine roller coaster right now. I'm very sensitive to caffeine, so I'm like jittery and like very excited right now.
So this is a great time to record.
Prom! I saw some prom kids out last weekend in their beautiful dresses.
Yes, they're making all the reservations. They're reserving all the limos. Here's something I want to talk to you about, and I want your opinion. What do you think about promposals? I'm going to spoiler alert and tell you what I think, but keep your answer honest. I think they're over the top and ridiculous.
I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of pressure to do, really big over the top, and then there's probably competition. I mean, I think it's cute. Like, I think it comes from a good place, and it is sweet. And prom seems like a really big deal when you're in high school, so I can understand. So I think it comes from a sweet place, but I think it probably breeds some jealousy and competition.
Yeah, after hearing you talk about it like that, I take back my harshest criticism. I guess some of the things that I see it is putting a lot of pressure on people, and also, like, can't girls ask guys to prom? Like, they should.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually asked my husband to a junior prom. On our first date, I said, would you go to prom with me? My prom, because we went to two different high schools. And so, I think that everything can kind of get blown out of proportion. And we all look back on it now and it's like, oh, prom actually wasn't that important. So why did I care? But, at the time it seemed so important. And I mean, I've seen some sweet promposals, and I think they're cute, like I said, but yeah. And girls, I mean, I think I've seen girl promposals, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I don't know. I'm being bitter. You're all hyper and enthusiastic, and I'm being bitter today. But anyway, well, we're talking about Prom Night, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie came out in 1980. It is considered a Canadian movie. It was directed by Paul Lynch. It had a budget of $1.5 million. It took in $14 million at the box office. It's only 42% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, but as most horror movies, and especially horror movies of that time, critics did not like it, like horror movies. Siskel and Ebert in particular gave a lot of negative criticism to this movie, but that actually only built an audience because people were like, well, now I have to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens where if people are seriously offended by a movie, then everybody wants to see it. So it's kind of funny you mentioned that it's a Canadian film. So I put it on, and I'd seen it once before. But I know Leslie Nielsen was in it, and he's Canadian, but I didn't necessarily think that made it Canadian film, but I would say about 5 minutes in, as a fellow Canadian, I knew right away that it was Canadian. There was just too many boots and, sorries. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? So I thought maybe it was all just Canadian actors, which happens a lot. And also, I grew up in Vancouver, and I knew right away that it looked like it was filmed in Canada as well. And yeah, I was kind of surprised to see it was actually a Canadian film, not just Canadian actors in an American film. So that's cool.
This movie was very popular in drive-ins, and this is sort of the height of the drive-ins in 1980. I feel like right before they started to close. This movie has 4 sequels and a 2008 remake. Did you see the remake?
I don't think so. I don't think I did. We should watch it sometime. It would be interesting to see sort of the changes and how different or not different it is. So I saw this movie once, probably around the time I was going to prom. And it's funny because I don't know how it was for you, but I only really remembered the beginning. I didn't remember most of the movie, but the beginning really stuck in my head. And I thought that was very profound, but I hadn't remembered most of it.
Ironic, because I only saw this movie once. probably around the same age, and I only remembered the end. Like, I remembered the girl, like, trying to hide in, like, the janitor's closet and stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I've seen this movie. But then by the time I got to the end, I'm like, oh, yeah, I've definitely seen this.
Yeah, and, obviously we're really skipping ahead here, but the end, I can see how that stuck in your mind, too, because it was a pretty decent ending. But, yeah, the beginning with the kids really stuck in my mind. So that was very fresh at the top of my memories when I was watching it. I was like, oh, yeah. But it's funny because, yeah, then it was like the middle. I don't know. The middle didn't stand out to me as much as the beginning and the end.
And it's funny because there's like that epic disco scene, which we're going to get to. But, those are the things that it should have stuck out to me, but they didn't. Okay, so one of the characters' names is Kelly, and it's kind of creepy because, like, she's getting the phone call. It's like, Kelly!
Yeah, and, like, when she's a kid, he says it, and I was like, oh, and... yeah, there's some creepy stuff going on, and they really set up where they make you believe that other people are the killer. So I thought that was really well done. And I don't know, I love the whole concept of these kids do this thing. They're playing this game, back in the 80s where I guess you played in abandoned buildings with your friends and your parents weren't around. And they end up murdering this little girl, and they all keep it a secret. And I think that's a good concept. It's sort of like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but they're even younger. So it was kind of a neat concept to begin with.
It is. Skipping to, they're older. Wendy is so mean to her mom or grandma. I don't know who she was. I mean, she was probably supposed to be her mom, but she looked like grandma to me. Like, she asks if she's going to be home for dinner, and her response is, how the hell should I know? Like, can you imagine speaking to your parents like that?
No, I would not have gotten away with that. Yeah, she's definitely set up as the villain, right, in this. Yeah, she's definitely supposed to sort of play off as Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, is our heroine, and she's definitely our villain.
Wendy is such a bee, and, she's set up that way. And, like, the first scene, I already knew. Lou is smoking in school, like, just in the hallway, and he has a unibrow.
Yeah, he's hideous, and, I mean, I was like, oh, my God, 1980, they're literally smoking in the hall. I don't know if that was really allowed. I think he was, a rebel. He does get thrown out of school, and, yeah, he's really icky.
Also, speaking of Kelly, her boyfriend needs to settle the heck down.
Who's her boyfriend?
Well, he's just the guy who, like, wants to have sex so badly, and she's not ready.
Oh, and he's such an asshole when she's like, yeah, I'm not ready. And then at first he was like, okay, seemed like he was okay. And then his true colors came out. That was disturbing. I mean, that is the reality of how women are treated in that situation. So that was kind of a disturbingly too real scene.
Yeah, it was strange. It's like, I'll be gentle with you, and then you're a slut because you won't sleep with me. I don't know. The famous tagline, which I didn't remember, but it's a line in the movie. It's not who you come with, it's who takes you home.
That's a great line, actually. I love it. And of course the villain says it. But that's I mean, it's true. She's right. It's not who you go to prom with, it's who you go home with that night.
I'm skipping to the prom already because, there's just some middle ground that's just building up the story.
I would say the middle of this movie, most of the middle is not great. I mean, it starts out with that really great concept, and then it falls really quickly into sort of your typical slasher teenage romp.
Jamie Lee Curtis's dress, I wrote yikes, and it's better when she takes, like, the blouse off that's over it, but, like, wow.
80s fashion. Like, she comes down and he's like, you look so wonderful, or you look so beautiful. I'm like, really? Okay. Like, yikes.
I did like Wendy's red sequin dress. That felt timeless.
I like that too. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis looks like awkward family photos or something. Like, it's not good. And with, like, the big, huge corsage or whatever she's wearing. Just no. Mm-mm.
Disco, I am always fascinated that disco existed and it was taken seriously because it seems so cheesy. And sometimes I like So You Think You Can Dance, and I know your mom does too. sometimes they have a disco choreographer come on, and I could just never really take it seriously.
That's interesting because since you have a dance background, I'd be interested to know that because, like me, I think it seems cheesy and everything, but I'm not someone who knows anything about dance. So you just feel you don't really respect it as much as other dances, it sounds like.
No, not really. And it's funny, speaking of dance, in this current season of The Americans that's airing right now, Philip, one of the Russian spies, he's getting into country line dancing, which was really popular in the 80s for a while, and that is cheesy to me too.
Oh boy. Yeah, there's something, I mean, I guess maybe disco felt accessible to people, like they could do it, unlike Gene Kelly or something where you can't really aspire to that, but watching them do their disco sequence was surreal and just, cheesy. And if they were like, okay, everybody, like, this is how we're going to show how cool we are. And it's so of its time and so detached from anything that would be cool now.
Yeah, it feels like satire or out of place, like it's a joke scene, because now there's no serious dance-off scenes in any movie,
Yeah, I mean, it takes itself seriously, and they're like, look at these moves, and it's like, oh boy. And I kept picturing like how it was written in the script. I don't know, like I just kept thinking about that, and I'm like, oh boy, this is cheesy. But I can see, as if you were a teenager back then, maybe that was cool. I don't know.
The next thing that I have, I guess his name is Drew. Kelly's boyfriend's name is Drew. They sneak away into like a locker room, gross, and this I think that there's a reoccurring theme of girls feeling pressured or being pressured, like they owe it to guys to sleep with them. I mean, not just in horror movies, but in life and in other movies and media in general. And I was like, I hope this Drew guy dies because he's the worst.
Yeah, that was, like I said, very disturbing because there was a little bit too much honesty in that scene. But yeah, I mean, I read something the other day, and it was really interesting. It was about how when men make horror movies and write horror, they imagine what it's like to be a woman. They sort of, when they're writing female characters in movies, they imagine what the horror would be like to be a woman. And it's kind of interesting because when you think about and I don't know, I'm assuming this movie was written by a man. Perhaps I shouldn't assume, but I think it's safe to say. And so it's kind of interesting when you sort of look at it from that lens of like how men see what threatens women. You know what I mean? Which, I mean, they're not wrong. It is threatening to be in a locker room with somebody you think is your boyfriend, and then they treat you like that, and then she dies, seconds later, which really sucks because she stood her ground and was like, I'm not going to have sex with you right now. I don't feel right about it. And then she gets punished, which is something we've talked a lot about in horror movies, slasher movies especially.
I wrote boo. Like, Kelly should not be killed after that moment. I mean, there's no good message there.
No, I feel like that was an opportunity that was lost to sort of kind of give her sort of some character growth. And maybe she would have died later because it is a slasher and we need to have our body count. But it felt like her sort of moment of, okay, I did that and this guy treated me like an asshole and all that. Like she didn't get to sort of have her good, nice moment after of like female empowerment.
So skip to this couple in the van. This is the unibrow guy, I think.
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
No, it's okay. It was like one of those situations where you're like, him? Because she's like kind of cute and he apparently must be really charming. I didn't get that vibe, but he's like, he's not traditionally good looking. But they were kind of funny in the van. That was cute.
They were funny. And I was like, is this guy peeing mid-sex? But apparently they were done.
Yeah. And then, like, I guess they had, like, a cute moment where they, like, admitted to each other that had been their first time. And so it was kind of cute and sweet and very, like, teenagery. I thought they did a good job making it very, like, again, sort of real in the vortex of, like, this silly slasherness.
Within this scene, I noted two things. First of all, he's got quite a stash.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah.
Like he opens up his thing and it's like just full of joints. And then also this killer's getting around pretty fast.
The killer, yeah, the killer is definitely moving, and they set up this idea that it was like this guy who had been accused of killing the little girl, and so you're still kind of in that headspace thinking it's that guy. So they did a good job of that. But yeah, and then when the dude starts trying to drive away after the girl is killed, yeah, that was one agile killer. That's why it's kind of hard to believe when they try to infer that it's Leslie Nielsen later, because they do kind of make you want to think that. It's kind of hard to believe because it's like, I mean, not that Leslie Nielsen was that old yet, but still.
So a little background knowledge. The van used in this movie, according to the audio commentary, which I didn't listen to, but I was reading about it, somebody on like a production assistant stole the van to be used, and it was actually stolen, and then they actually like wrecked it, and it exploded on impact, which is one of those things. But yeah, they stole this van.
Whoops. Hey, I guess if you're trying to make a movie with a low budget, that's what you do, right?
Now, getting to the scene that getting to the only scene I apparently remembered, Wendy's chase scene, being chased. She's very good at evading the axe, because the killer keeps swinging this axe, and she is not getting hit. And it's a good, tense chase scene because it's not just, oh, she went and hid one place and then it's over. Like, there's several rooms involved.
Yeah, it is a good scene. I just want to say real quick about the van. I just wanted to say that I do love when the girl's leaning back against the doors and he opens the doors and she falls back, and the killer kills her that way. I just thought it was a really kind of cool choreographed sort of scene. But yeah, the axe chasing scene, I love an axe, and I thought it was again choreographed really well. Yeah, and it's intense and it goes on for a while.
A guy gets beheaded, which surprised me in that moment. And then they ended up giving the killer a good fight, I thought. Sometimes you feel like people aren't fighting back or they're just running the whole time, but they were actually fighting.
Yeah, and then he gets that. Does she hit him in the head at the end? And that ends up, I guess, killing him, which is kind of interesting because it was just one big hit to the head, and then he ends up living for a few minutes and then dies at the very end. But yeah, I thought that was done well. Again, I feel like the bookends of this movie are the best, and the middle is sort of bogged down with your typicalness.
I agree. So apparently, also something I read, in a deleted scene, we find out that the brother, who ends up being the killer, was actually the twin of the dead sister, but that's not made clear in the version we watched.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I kept trying to figure out ages when I was watching it, because I'm like, okay, there's 3 of them. One died, and what grades was everybody in? So I guess that kind of makes more sense now. It was a good twist. I mean, I forgot who the killer was, so I actually when the what is that? Balaclava? How do you say that? The thing over his face, when that's removed, I was surprised. I was like, oh yeah, it was him, because I was kind of going on and on in my head, who could it be? So I definitely forgot that. It just completely left my mind.
Yeah, I didn't remember either who the killer was, and Ed had no memory of it. So, anything else you want to say about Prom Night?
I think we should watch the remake. I think it'd be interesting to see. So, if anybody's seen it, let us know what you guys think, because I'd be curious to know if it has the same plot. And also, have you seen the sequel?
I haven't, but I see that it's on Shudder.
Yeah, we should probably watch that too. It would be kind of interesting to see what's happening. The brother's dead, so what could possibly be happening? I'm curious.
We need to rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. Prom Night, corsages, disco moves.
Yeah, let's do powder blue corsages with lots of baby's breath in it.
So out of 0 to 10, how many do you give Prom Night?
I'm going to give it a 7 because I feel like the beginning, I like the concept. The acting's actually pretty decent. Jamie Lee Curtis, horror maven. The end, I like the twist, but the middle's kind of a little bit mushy.
I'm going to give it 6 corsages and a boutonniere, which is 6.5. Because, like you said, great setup. A little bit, I felt like that middle with just the threatening phone calls and stuff, it didn't feel like the stakes were high because, I don't know. And then the end was good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely lives in the. It's not terrible. It's not great.
It's time for our fast forward segment. Meg, do you know what you're talking about today?
Yeah, I mentioned a book earlier in for our 1 year anniversary podcast, and so I've been sort of trying to read more women contemporary horror authors because that's what I do, and I feel like the only way to get better at what I do is to sort of immerse myself in that. So I came across this woman named Sarah Langan, and she's a fellow author in the Horror Writers Association, and she's been very successful, and she's won Bram Stoker Awards, and her work really interested me, so I ordered the book The Keeper, which is her debut novel, and I'm so pleasantly surprised. It's I don't know how you feel, but like sometimes it's hard to try a new author and just like be like, okay, I'm trying this new person, because we get stuck in like our Stephen King or whoever, we get kind of stuck in that, and we want to just read books over and over by the same author. So it was like, okay, I'm diving into somebody new here, but I'm so glad I did, because the book is amazing. It takes place in Maine. It's not like a Stephen King Maine. It's sort of a different vibe, but it's taking place in this fictional small town that kind of reminded me of my little fictional small town that I write about. And it's just, I mean, it's written so well. The characters, I mean, obviously there are many female characters. It's sort of centered around this woman who has like a very bad reputation in town, but she also has sort of a witch vibe, as in sort of a supernatural vibe, and nothing overtly supernatural has happened yet, but I think it will. And it seems like maybe somebody died, and there's just a lot of mystery going on, but it's written beautifully. So I would tell everybody to try out Sarah Langan. She's amazing.
And when did The Keeper come out?
I believe 2006. So, and I mean, right away after like 50 pages, I already started ordering her other books, because, her prose is just beautiful, and she just has a particular accessibility, and it's just fun to read. Unfortunately, I just haven't been exposed to that many contemporary horror authors that are women. So I don't know. It's just neat to try it out and try new people and be pleasantly surprised, which I was. So definitely check her out.
So I want to plug a couple of things that our friends are doing. Well, you plug your friends. I'll plug mine, or our friends. My friend Nate, who you've heard on the podcast as a guest co-host, he started a YouTube channel and in other social medias. It's called Duluth Walks, and it's such a great idea, because if you're a person who doesn't get out in nature as much as you would like, or you're on a treadmill and you're looking for something to watch while you're walking, he's recording these beautiful walks, and you can watch along and feel like you're there. And it's just such a great idea. So check out his YouTube channel. It's called Duluth Walks. And that's where I'm from, and where Meg grew up as well. So you can kind of see where we're from.
And I want to let you guys know about a book that is coming out. You can actually pre-order it right now on Amazon. It is written by my friend Jalen Else, and it's called Descendants of Avalon, and I've had the pleasure of reading an advance copy. And this is for those of you out there who love fantasy. It is I guess you could say a middle grade fantasy, so it's more written in sort of mind for middle schoolers, I would say. But so if you have a middle schooler in your life who loves fantasy and loves female-driven fantasy, it's about a group of girlfriends, and they sort of find themselves in Avalon. So it's really cool, and I really encourage you to check it out on Amazon. But it's Descendants of Avalon by J. Lynn Else.
So you and this just reminded me of something. You said it's a group of girlfriends, and Megan introduced me or called me her girlfriend this weekend, meaning like a friend that's a girl. But it reminds me of the meme from when that movie Carol came out, and apparently like halfway during the movie, some woman said to her husband, "Harold, they're lesbians."
Yeah, when I did that earlier, someone thought we were a couple, and I realized I'm really old fashioned. I need to stop saying girlfriend. To me, like if I'm saying girlfriend, I mean, it's just in my mind that I mean friend. So I guess I need to be with the times. I mean, not that it matters what anybody thinks, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's completely fine. I will proudly be known as your spouse. It doesn't bother me at all. But that reminds me, Lisa, our mixologist, she and I we were at a bar when we were touring her eventual graduate school. And this guy, we were like, oh, can you tell us about the town? He was a local. And he just assumed we were a couple. We didn't even say anything. And he's just like, oh, you should go to this bar because they're really welcoming of lesbians. And we're like, thanks. We didn't correct him because, it's fine.
That's nice that he assumed that, because I'm assuming people that are of that community feel like they were always having to be like, hey, by the way, we're a couple, so it's nice that there was an assumption there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so, I'll take it. We hope that you are having a wonderful week, Horror Rewind listeners, and we are always looking for your recommendations.
We love suggestions from our girlfriends and boyfriends.
Woohoo! So we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.